You know, normally I don't do videos and post these kind of videos on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. But I've been sitting here reading reading some posts, and I came across a post about something about Tyree saying we don't have a hate crimes bill when we do. And it took years for this to happen. It took years for a bill like the James Byrd Matthew Shepard bill. And it took years for the anti-lynching bill to be passed. Now, the reason why I say it took years, because I know about the last lynching and the last hate crime in the southern part of the United States. That history is embedded in me. So I know a lot of folks heard my story plenty of times on Zooms that I've been on, talked to me personally when I shared the story. But this is part of my legacy. This is also part of my mother's legacy. So let me give you some background. So back, I think it was like 1980, somewhere around in that time, 1981, the beginning of 1981, I think. There was a court case where a black man was charged with killing a white man. I think it was a police officer, I believe. If people know about that case in Birmingham in the early 80s, please correct me if I'm wrong. But that's neither here nor there, but still. The case got so much publicity that it was brought to my hometown of Mobile, Alabama. And the jury was 11 blacks, 1 white. And the jury was deadlocked. And there was a mistrial declared. Well, the Ku Klux Klan here in Mobile, Alabama, headed by a man by the name of Benny Hayes, thought that, had the idea where if a black man could get away with killing a white man, then a white man could get away with killing a black man. Let's fast forward. I believe this happened in December of 1981. Young man by the name of Michael Donald. He was 19 years old, graduate of my alma mater, Murphy High School. Was sent to the store by his sister to go grab her a pack of cigarettes. Now here's the thing, Michael didn't live in like an upscale area of Mobile. In fact, black folks weren't even allowed to live in the upscale parts of Mobile, if there ever was one. Michael lived in where Orange Grove, the campground, the bottom, where, you know, all those areas there, where nothing but black folks there. And here's the thing, but white people never showed up in that area. I'll get to that in a second, because that's going to be important for the story. So Michael was on his way to the store, and 2 white men stopped Michael for directions to a club that mostly black folks go to. I don't think any white people ever went to that club. And Michael, being the person that he was, decided to give these white men directions. I'm not going to go into most of the gory details, but about a man by the name of James Tiger Knowles got out of his car with a gun, pointed his gun at Michael, and robbed him and forced him in the car. Like I said, I'm not going into the gory parts of where they took him, how severely they beat him, and put a noose around his neck. I'm not going to go into all that. But I will tell you that when they brought Michael's body back to Mobile, they hung Michael from a tree on a street called Herndon Avenue as a reminder that the Ku Klux Klan still was alive and well in Mobile, Alabama. Now, if it wasn't for people like Thomas Figures and Michael Figures fighting for justice or trying to get justice or get at least some type of justice for Michael Donald, that case would have never went to trial. Now, when I said this is part of my legacy and part of my mom's legacy, this is where my mother comes in. See, my mother just came back home in 1982. She started working for the state of Alabama. And she had been home about a good year when she got the summons for jury duty. My mother went to jury duty. She never told us what the case was, even though we thought, and I think my grandmother had mentioned that the Henry Hayes case was coming up. Because that's one of the other men that actually killed Michael, Henry Hayes, who happens to be Benny Hayes' son. At that time, Henry Hayes originally was looking at life in prison without the possibility of parole because he was charged with capital murder. But the prosecution was very smart in looking at the case as a whole, the statements that came out by Tiger Knowles. And one of the statements, the statement that Tiger Knowles gave, he mentioned that they robbed Michael of a dollar bill in his pocket. Yep. Murder in the commission of a robbery. That means Henry Hayes was eligible for the death penalty. So again, as I said, my mother got jury summons for a jury. My mother tells a story like this. As she was sitting there, Henry Hayes' attorney dismissed every black potential jurist from the case. When it was all said and done, 11 jurors had been seated, and they were all white. There were only 2 black potential jurors left. My mother and another man. And I believe my mother said that Judge Braxton Kittrell asked my mother, did she want to sit on this jury? And my mother said, yes. And my mother said that when the jury was finally seated, she was with the 12th jurist. She was the only black woman, only black on this jury. The other black man was the alternate. And my mom sat in that jury box. When she sat in the jury box, Benny Hayes looked at my mother and smiled, as if to say, we are going to get away with this. And I'm not going to repeat the word that my mama said that she thought he was thinking. And my mother, who is a brave soul, looked back at Benny Hayes and smiled back at him and said to herself, not if I have anything to do with it. They listened to the case, they got the evidence, and they got when it was time for the jury to deliberate, they got the case, and they went to deliberate. First time they deliberated, yeah, it wasn't too fun. First vote, 9 guilty, 3 not guilty. I think my mom said they took about 2 or 3 votes. And they argued this case back and forth. And no matter how they were right about those that were thinking they were guilty, the 3 guilty, not guilty jurors wouldn't budge. So they went back out in the courtroom and told Braxton Kittrell they were hopelessly deadlocked. They couldn't come up with a verdict. And Braxton Kittrell looked at all 12 of them, including the alternate, and said, you guys got to come up with a verdict. This cannot be a hung jury. It has to be unanimous. So he sent them back to the jury room, took another vote, still 9 guilty, 3 not guilty. And the foreman of the jury, who was exasperated, apparently, said, does anybody else got to say? And my mother raised her hand. And when my mother raised her hand, she said the following first sentences to that jury. And it went a little something like this. Y'all don't go down Davis Avenue. Y'all don't go down Davis Avenue. The only time y'all go down Davis Avenue is to deliver bread, milk, and meat. Because during that time in the 80s, there was only 2 black grocery stores on Davis Avenue, which is not MLK Avenue. That was the only time you ever seen white people in a black neighborhood. When my mother made those statements, she broke down that case from the rooter to the tutor. She went through when Michael got robbed. She went through when Michael got beaten, when Henry Hayes slit his throat. She went through the whole case. There was nothing was said. You could hear a mosquito piss on cotton, pretty much. When they took the final vote, it was unanimous. All 12 guilty. Because my mother, no other jurors, my mother spoke up in that jury room. She spoke for Michael Donald and the Donald family. My mother wanted to make sure that before she walked out that room, they got justice for Michael. Remember, my mama said she looked at Benny Hayes, Henry Hayes' father, as to say, not if she had anything to do with it. And trust and believe she didn't have. She made sure she had something to do with it. Now you would think, after that case, which by the way, Henry Hayes got the death penalty, even though the jury voted life in prison without the possibility of parole, but Judge Kittrell sentenced him to death. You would think after that case and the civil case where Beulah McDonald sued the Klan for $7 million and won. Watch People versus the Klan. You'll understand what I'm talking about. You would think they would have passed a hate crimes bill. They would have passed an anti-lynching bill. No. It wasn't until I'm almost in my 40s where we got to see a hate crimes bill passed. The James Byrd Matthew Shepard hate crimes bill. I was 46 years old when they passed the anti-lynching bill. Do you want to know how old I was in 1981? I was 5. Yeah, we got local justice for Michael. We got state justice for Michael. We got civil justice for Michael. But guess what? That ain't going to bring Michael back. But it would have been fair, right? In if there was some type of hate crime law. And yes, even though it was in the Civil Rights Act, nobody could execute any type of real punishment. Do you know that they had to figure out how they were going to get Henry Hayes the death penalty? Because all they could charge him with was capital murder. Had there been a hate crimes charge, he probably would have gotten the death penalty. But because there was nothing like that, they had to figure out how in the world they were going to give a Klansman, the death penalty. But yet, we as black people haven't been screaming and hollering and yelling about a hate crimes bill. What happened to James Byrd happened years ago. What happened to Matthew Shepard happened years ago. And it took to 2019, it took almost to our first black president was in office to pass the bill. Because when we tried to pass it, when President when George W. Bush was in office, it failed. It failed. And it took the first black president to pass a hate crimes bill. But yet, for years, nobody screamed about a hate crimes bill. No one fought for that after Michael Donald died. Nobody. There may have been people that was calling for it or begging for it, but it wasn't enough black voices out there to say, we need this. It took them to have a black man in Texas dragged behind a truck and a young gay white man hung from a fence in Wyoming to even get a hate crimes bill. We needed justice for Michael long before this happened. So I advise all y'all black folks that are sitting up here talking about we need a hate crimes bill, when none of y'all, even those that are old as me, at 48 years old, wasn't screaming for a hate crimes bill after Michael Donald died. Y'all need to get y'all minds together. Stop thinking that, you understand? Stop thinking that Republicans are on our side. They are not. They don't give a care about the fact that we're black. Because guess what? All we are to them are props. That's it. They don't like us. And it ain't got nothing to do with being a Democrat or a Republican. You got to realize there are some people on the other side of that aisle called the Republican Party that don't like black people. They don't give a damn about you. Do you know that I had somebody come up to me and tell me I needed to vote for Trump? And I said no. You know why? Because my future, you understand, look, I may be 48 years old, but I've still got a future in this country. My daughter still have it. My son has a future in this country. My grandchildren have a future in this country. And those GOP people don't care about me, my daughter, my son, or my grandkids. And they damn sure don't care about you. You try to, you understand, they put it in your head that Democrats, you understand, the liberals, they don't care about black folks. Why? Because we as black people keep wanting something so fast, so quick, that when we don't get it fast enough, it's like, oh my God, we can't. Please, get yourselves all the way together. Y'all didn't have you understand? Let me tell you something. Our parents and grandparents didn't have a voice in 1981, 82, and 83 in Alabama for a hate crimes bill. Because we were too scared of the Ku Klux Klan. That is now part of the GOP. Hate crimes bill don't save lives, but it damn sure is a deterrent. So stop getting on your high horses, acting like we are almighty when we're not. I need my community to get themselves together and stop voting against your own interest. If you rich, great. I love that. But it ain't gonna help people like me. It ain't gonna help people like my children. And it damn sure ain't gonna help people like my grandbabies. And it ain't gonna help you. So stop wanting some instant gratification from our politicians. You want change? Go out there and make change. Get off your high horses. Get off from the side of the bed. Stop watching TikToks and shorts on YouTube and get up and vote like your life depends on it. Yes, I'm voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and I don't care if anybody comes for me about that. But best believe, if you're voting for Trump and J.D. Vance, all you'll ever be is a prop. Because Republicans, the GOP, MAGA, don't care about you. You're part of the minstrel show. That's all you'll ever be. So stop listening to people like Candace Owens. Stop listening to people that don't know exactly what civics and politics and government and how it works. Get up. Research, read, and you'll find out that for all these years, they didn't care about you. Again, as I always end every video I do, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. This video is in the loving memory of Michael Donald and my mother, Joetta Grinnell Chestnut Rogers. May they rest in peace forever.